Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time you've all been waiting for. So grab a hold of your pocket protectors and join us for NerdWorld!
Welcome to NerdWorld, episode number 61. It's crazy. This podcast is about 18 years old. I started a million years ago. We have a very, very special guest, and I'm
thank you. I feel very special.
Happy to call him my new friend that I've known for 2.5 years. And you guys are really going to enjoy this show, Mr. Nigel Dessau. Nigel, happy to have you. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thanks for the invite. I'm excited to be here, as they say.
We have lots of important questions to ask you, and you have a background very similar to Colin and JS and myself, and so we have lots to talk about. And we hope to just get all this finished in 60 minutes. We'll see how we do. Colin?
Well, if it takes more than 60 minutes, we'll just have to have him back.
Well, yeah, we can always do part 2. So Nigel and I have a very similar background in that I was in telecom and he was in a number of companies that were servicing the telecom industry for years. Nigel, you were at StorageTek and Sun and Oracle. You were at Oracle at one point?
No. Sun bought. Sun was sold to Oracle, but I had moved on by then.
No. You were at Oracle directly and not?
No, never at Oracle. Never made it to Oracle. I was at IBM.
But Nigel can give his 30,000-foot overview of his career. And so
apparently I can't read John's notes here. So tell us about yourself.
So, I mean, career-wise, IBM for 19 years, 10 years in the UK, 10 years in the US. And then
was most of that time while you were medicated?
It was. I would need to be. You know, my first 10 years was in IBM UK. And what's very strange for Americans to understand is once you leave these shores, companies like IBM are very different. We didn't know there was this big corporation. We just knew what we did. And so I was a sales rep. I was carrying a bag. I was selling stuff. And then came across to do marketing stuff and then left IBM to other places to do other things for a while, and have ended up mainly doing marketing roles and CEO type roles.
Did you have a supercomputer to calculate the holy hand grenade counting from 1 to 5?
I don't understand the question, so I'm probably going to say no, I didn't. I did never really.
You're not a fan of Monty Python. That was one of my first questions.
Oh, I'm always amazed how much Americans love Monty Python. I think I watched it once and never again, and it's sort of on repeat. I like the movies. Life of Brian is my favorite, I think.
What is your favorite color?
My favorite color is yellow, or is that another Monty Python question?
That's it, you're right. And
Nigel, how many seasons of Vera did you watch?
Of Vera?
Hmm?
I don't know.
Right, Line of Duty. How many seasons of Line of Duty did you watch?
Actually, none.
All right. What about Steptoe and Son?
Oh, well, so Steptoe and Son is actually much more interesting to me because Steptoe and Son, so I may end up being not very nerdy, but in English comedy at this point, because it was written by Galton and Simpson. For Americans, of course, it was known as Sanford and Son. But Galton and Simpson started writing it when they stopped writing for a comedian called Tony Hancock, who was my all-time comic hero. And so I did see Steptoe and Son, but to me, what they did before with Hancock was the more important work.
Okay.
It's very interesting.
I was just afraid there for a second that you were putting on a fake British accent. And this is my test to make sure.
As I point out to people, I have no accent. This is how it should be spoken.
Well, it's interesting though to see how British Monty Python is to Americans is quintessential British comedy. But as you pointed out, that's just not how it is.
No, I mean, there are a number of strains of English comedy. Monty Python is a particularly, a Cambridge Footlight's Review strain, which is sort of slightly anarchic and fun. There's lots of other strains, and the UK is really well served, or was, by the BBC and its need to produce comedy stuff. So a lot of stuff came out that famous series in the US really came out from the UK and from the BBC.
So we didn't finish your bio, though. So you were at IBM for 19 years, and then what happened?
I left IBM to join a company called StorageTek, who Sun bought 6 weeks later. So that was the shortest job I've ever done. And I ended up in Sun for a couple of years until I ran away screaming from there to a company called Advanced Micro Devices. That was going really swimmingly for a while, and then it didn't. And then I've done a couple of small company startups, sales, and now, as John knows well, I work for a company called Bravas, which is a home technology installer into luxury homes.
Wow, you just read the whole bio. Now I'm finished with my outline.
Well,
You could ask
let's talk about
questions.
StorageTek for a minute. StorageTek was a neat company. You were only there for a little while, but I guess. But
Yeah, StorageTek is one, our industry, technology industry, is full of technologies that people think have disappeared. I mean, I'm always amused by people go, well, nobody buys a mainframe anymore. Actually, I think IBM sells the same number of mainframes today that it sold 10 years ago. So some of those markets don't disappear, and StorageTek was tape storage, so backup and recovery tape storage. And even as of 2005,
Was that exabyte? Is that what you used, exabyte?
no, they had their
They
own
were
products.
their own thing.
competitor.
Competitor. Yeah, they made their own products, and as of 2000.
They had this giant tape robot that introduced
Yes.
me to StorageTek. This thing was like 6 feet tall, semicircular, like a cray almost.
Yeah, always much bigger a Cray. If you ever see the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Erasure, there's one in there. We placed one in there, and we used to place them in the movies because when you made a movie about a data center, it was the only thing that actually moved or did anything.
Yeah.
But anyway, 2005 was that time period. I can tell you, even in 2005, more operational data was held on their libraries than any other system in the world.
I was I was the third CNE, certified Novell engineer in Nevada, and we use StorageTek and a software program called Palindrome on the StorageTek hardware device.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I remember what Novell was. That was gonna
Novell
save.
was. I'm sure there are 50,000 employees who would take issue with that.
I have an abacus back here too, Nigel, that I could use for calculations.
Yes,
I have a history with IBM. Of course, at one point, I think everything that IBM sold was OEM'd, and back in the day, Ricoh made all of the copy machines for IBM and for Xerox. And there was in the United States, it came out with a law that said if you had a consumable product, you had to, you couldn't be the only one that sold it. You had to let others. And it was a company called Nashua who makes, every item that 3M makes, they make a version of it. And so went over to Nashua, and they had toner for IBM copy machines, and were not doing really well. Sales
IBM made copy machines?
It's copy
Ricoh.
machines. Yeah,
Ricoh made them for IBM.
Well,
And so what happened is that every one of the people out there that was servicing the IBM copiers said, oh, you can't use other toner in here. It'll void the warranty. It'll destroy it and everything. And this is how I actually got a dartboard hanging at IBM with my picture on it. Went to a legal department and said, why don't we do this? Let's come up with a document that says if you can get an IBM or Xerox representative to sign this, you get $10,000 cash. And so basically, they were asking all the people at Xerox and IBM to verify in writing that they would void warranties or destroy the machine or whatever. And we didn't give anybody $10,000 cash. So
What a shock. So
sales at the time went from like 55,000 a month to 1.5 million a month in a little over a year.
Yeah.
Worked well.
What did you do at IBM?
So my first 10 years was a systems engineer and a sales rep. And then my second 10 years, I did marketing. And probably the two areas of marketing I did most, I used to sort of own the brand for the high-end mainframes. So they're now called the Z series, and my claim to fame is I chose the letter Z. And the rest of the time, I was
Zed, right?
Say again?
Z? You mean the
No.
letter Z?
No, I chose the letter Z very carefully. And the other half of the time, I was part of the corporate marketing team. So if you remember in the turn of the 2000s, IBM did a lot of advertising around e-business and e-business infrastructure and stuff. I owned sort of the marketing strategy behind what we advertised.
How about the original IBM PC 81 with the what's his name?
Charlie Chaplin.
Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, actually, I got what you guys would call an intern role when I was at college with IBM. And that's how I got my full-time job offer, because I was the only one brave enough to touch the PC, which in the UK office was, there were two of these things sitting on the desks with people trying to avoid them. And I went, I know what I'm doing with this. So that's how I actually got the full-time job, was actually being the only one willing to touch the device.
An IBM 5151, or was it an AT?
It was an AT. It was the original PC, and the 5151 I think was before that, and then there was the PC and the AT, and then actually it was XT before AT, wasn't it?
There was a PC Junior in there somewhere too.
Yeah, the Junior was there. I have a
PC,
5151 in my
Junior,
garage
the
right
XT, the AT, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, they had the Junior, and then they had the portable, and then they had the convertible. And unlike the convertible, unlike the portable, was actually movable, as I remember.
Where did you go to school, Nigel?
So I grew up in a town called Nottingham, well known for Robin Hood and Nottingham Forest Football Club, and that's where I studied. But I never got a degree because I didn't do very well at exams, so I sneaked through with that one.
Was Robin Hood a good guy or a bad guy?
So Robin Hood was the good guy. It was the Sheriff of Nottingham was the bad guy. And of course, the Sheriff of Nottingham is a real person. Even to today, that role exists. Robin Hood, not so much.
Oh, darn it. He was a good guy.
He did. He stole from the rich and gave to the poor.
Okay, so let's talk about AMD. Were you there during the time where they were kicking Intel's arse?
No. So I got the fun bit, which was, let's try not to go bankrupt, shall we? Those semiconductor firms are very secure. I joined in 2008, and for the first 2 or 3 years, we tried really hard not to go bankrupt.
What processors were that vintage? I'm trying to remember. The A4 or A?
So that was part of the rebranding that we started to do. I mean, it was the end of the Athlon, it was the Optron era, and it was the time they just bought ATI, and they were merging the ATI graphics onto the CPUs, which we called APUs, and that's where that phrase came from. Accelerated processing units actually came from that period of time. But to survive, we had to do some incredible things, including sell off our fabs, which is now known as Global Foundry, because that was a particularly hard time. And so we were just...
Well, that's when the whole economy and the whole world crashed, 2000.
Yeah, and AMD missed a couple of cycles on their processors. And, when you do that, as you can see, Intel's done that recently, it takes a few years to recover, and the board wasn't... Well, something went on which I can't discuss under non-disclosure, but they let the CEO go, and as the chief marketing officer, I went shortly afterwards.
And where were you, in Austin?
I was in Austin, Texas. That's where really everything for AMD was in those days, management-wise. There was still an engineering in Santa Clara, but everything else was in Austin.
Wow, that's a great
I
story.
didn't realize the Silicon Prairie was really a thing.
Actually, you'd be surprised because you had Freescale here, you have Samsung up the road, NSP, which is now NXP, which of course is the old Freescale.
Texas Instruments, which is really the big name there,
and Westinghouse, and there's a lot
I
of
just
silicon.
didn't realize it had continued beyond the mid '80s.
Well, Samsung's new plant they're just building a new plant just up the road, so there's a lot of silicon in Austin.
Yeah. So JS has a very important question. He wanted to know, do you still have black or blue suits in your closet?
Actually, I have one suit left, JS, and it's gray.
They let you wear gray suit?
No, I did not. I'm not quite the same shape I was when I was at IBM 20 years ago.
You're
But
thinner than you were.
yes, of course. Thank you, John. I'll go with that. Mainly blue suits. I think mainly bluey. The
Dark
UK
blue,
wasn't.
IBM, right?
Well, but that's real US. The UK, we were much more relaxed than that.
Really?
And then when I came to work in the
What was the most
US.
surprising thing you found working for IBM? What was very surprising for you?
When I first arrived in the US, so I'd been doing some marketing for IBM in the UK, and you just did everything because you were a one-person band. And I got to the US, and I was talking to the divisional team, and I said, well, "What do you do?" And this guy said to me, "Well, I do brochures." I went, "That's nice. What else do you do?" And he goes, "I just do brochures." And what's the person in the next office? He does leaflets. What's the difference in a brochure and a leaflet? Oh, that's a big difference. And, gone from a world where you did everything yourself to everybody, there were just so many people. It was just everybody had their own little niche and they didn't escape from it.
Do you know the character Hal from Space Odyssey, 2001 Space Odyssey?
Of course, open the Bombay doors, Hal.
Do you know where the name Hal came from?
I do. It's one letter off IBM.
How did you know that?
Nigel.
Sorry,
Nigel.
That's a good trivia question.
It is.
I didn't know that. Huh.
You didn't know that. That's where they got the name Hal from.
Nigel, what was your favorite job that you ever did?
That's a great question.
My favorite job is my current job, as I tell the board that I work for every day.
Yeah.
But I think some of the times that AMD was the most fun. We tried to do something which wasn't terribly successful, which was we did two interesting projects. One was to try and destroy the battery benchmark, which fundamentally was completely mistrusted, and we managed to do that. The other thing we really wanted to do was to rebrand our processes to an experience base. And so we renamed them from being numbers to words, which
A4, A5.
Well, just before that, they were called, there was the base product, and there was the ultimate, and there was the pro, and all those things. Everyone said, "Oh, nobody will ever buy that. That's the stupid way to do it." And we really couldn't convince, the OEMs that were in the pockets of Intel to buy into any of this. Now, of course, you look at what Apple's doing, and you go, well, it's blindingly obvious. Everybody knew how to do that. But 10, 15 years ago, it was a hard sell because Intel had such a stranglehold on the whole industry.
Do you still have anything to do with batteries today?
Only in my cameras.
John and I are big proponents of graphene.
I do like graphene.
Well,
create a graphene battery that's about the size of my fist, and the surface area is the size of 3 football fields.
Wow.
So people have been talking about this for like 15 years.
Well, because it's super expensive and very hard to do.
No, it's not 15.
Easily 15.
No, not 15.
Expensive and very hard to do. It's 1 atom thick. I mean, but I remember. So when you were working with IBM originally, what was the nanometer density back then?
Oh, I don't remember. When I joined AMD, we were going from 90 to 45 and then down to something like that. I mean, IBM's mainframe business, I never remember what that was. I mean, I spent my real time at IBM was in the high-end mainframe business where we were doing SOI-based stuff and inventing. I rebranded the whole of the IBM mainframe series.
When you went from 90 to 45, would you ever dream that we'd be down to 5 nanometers?
Well, the funny thing is that at about 10, they said, well, the problem with 10 is the speed of light. And people say, well, you can't get much below 10 or 15 or whatever. It's the speed of light. And you'd say that to the engineers, and they went, oh, we were past that years ago. We're at half the speed of light. And now, but the other thing is, I would also say, Jess, in those days, we actually named our processes after the number of nanometers they really were. Now they have increasingly fictitious, links between, we're on the 3 nanometer process, but it's really a 7 nanometer process. Well, then why did you call it the 3? Because we had to drop another number each year.
Interesting.
Really? I didn't. Huh.
Oh, yeah. The 3, I think TSMC 3 is actually 5 or something. And, Intel's now inventing anything it can.
So they're
doing the whole stacked thing where they've got 3 or 4 tiers of.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So because your issue is your speed to the memory, but what Apple did with the ultimate processor is what AMD did in 2012 or something, when it and effectively glued a graphics and a CPU chip together on a card.
What is the Z-line mainframe? What is the differentiation between a mainframe and a mid-range?
So I think the difference would be probably the mainframe was a set of, in the original was a set of individual boxes. You'd have a processor and you'd have IO, and there would be IO, and they'd all be in different boxes, and they run a set of mainframe operating systems. If you're thinking about the minis, be the DEX PDP-8 or the VAXes or the Data General stuff, they tended to be in their own box, and one of them used a complex instruction set and the other used a reduced instruction set. So the minis were tended to be RISC boxes.
But several of the casinos use still IBMs to this day because their software is written on it.
Yeah, that's the I series, which is a mini, not a mainframe. I mean, some of this is a bit
like a 360 or what would be
360 was
360. I learned JCL 360. I used to.
Right, so that's mainframe. What you're talking about is what was the AS400 family, which was the System 36 family, which became the I series, which is called something else now.
So for those who
400
want a frame of reference here, a mini, as a mini computer in this context, is a thing the size of a coffee table and maybe 3 feet high, 4 feet high.
Well, SGI had midis that were smaller than that.
Yeah, I mean, they exist. I'm saying a PDP-11 was the size. I had one
SGI.
in my dorm room on a coffee table. So I that's, yeah.
I was the Southern Nevada dealer for SGI. I know it well.
But then there was some really big SGI boxes as well.
Lifting those up, the SGI computer?
No, the Indy was a little teeny thing, small as a PC, but the Indigos were like a stand-up desktop machine.
And they were workstations.
Yeah, so there's a lot of hotels that you still use AS400s because all the reservation systems that they use in casino management programs are all on the S400.
Yeah, the S400 was really an application-driven market. So you would buy one of those things because it had the application, whereas a mainframe was really much more of a develop it yourself or roll your own application market. So.
And what was the model number of the Z series? The Z1?
So we started with the Z900.
Z900. I've never even heard of that machine.
Yeah, it's the Z900 was the first. It was launched in September 2000. I will tell you something I probably shouldn't, which is the development cost was $500 million, and we broke even in 100 days.
Holy smokes! And who bought that machine? Three-letter acronyms?
Yeah, bank. Oh, then we couldn't possibly mention those. Banks, insurance companies, any company that did a huge scale of transactions where what differentiated them was not the service they offered, but how well they were able to manage those transactions.
And they were running what database?
You buy 2 of them and make a coffee table out of them.
Yeah, you could. They
ran. I have 2 Mac Pros here with a piece of glass on the top.
That's why I said that.
Yeah.
You can run Oracle on that. You can run lots
DB2.
of other databases, but it was DB2, DB2 or VSAM. Yeah.
Colin, do you know DB2?
Of course.
You do. Oh,
It's I wouldn't go near it with a 10-foot pole.
Are you talking about Debbie Barrett's daughter?
No, so back when DB2 was around long before that, in the mid 90s, maybe late 80s, right? But no, I just remember I was doing PC.
note that Colin is wearing a MongoDB T-shirt while he's talking about old databases.
MongoDB, one of the newest, coolest databases out there. We were talking about this on the pre-show. Mongo is a document database specifically designed to not be an ACID database, which manages the type of transactions that Nigel's talking about here that need to be highly atomic and managed efficiently.
Atomic, is that the right adjective?
Doesn't do that, and this is the modern style that every one of the little Silicon Valley startups that you hear about here, there, and everywhere are using. It works very well for web-related applications, not so good for finance.
You said the word atomic. Please articulate that.
All right. So, for example, if I go and I buy a set of items from you, a computer and a monitor and a camera, and I go and want to pay for that. I'm not paying for a computer and then paying for a monitor and then paying for a camera. I'm paying for it all at once, and the transaction includes 3 products, 1 customer, 1 price, 1 tax rate, and a number of other things, but they all get slammed into the database as a single transaction, an atomic transaction. That's what that means.
That's what they call that?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I did. I call it ka-ching.
How do you store a blob in that database, Colin?
In the same way.
Does DB2 support blobs?
No, you wouldn't use DB2 for blobs. I mean, it probably can do nowadays, but in those days, I know it's a long time since I've been there. It was about transactions. It was your bank records, your insurance stuff. It was about thousands of people banging on the systems. Of course, the internet caused that to grow as well, because if you think about an airline ticket reservation, you go into your travel agency and you'd book a ticket, there'd be 1 transaction. Now we book our ticket and then we check it 15 times and we change it 3 times. So there's this huge flow of transactions that have grown, increased the need for those sorts of transaction management systems.
Hey, Nigel, who would you say were your mentors?
So, I had a number of mentors over my time, particularly at IBM. I mean, I'll tell you, IBM was the best education I ever got. I was no question technology-wise, but there were a couple of people. There was a guy at IBM called Irving Wadowski-Berger, Dr. Irving Wadowski-Berger. He was a Cuban Jew.
Wadowski-Berger?
Irving Wadowski-Berger. He's still around. He's a Cuban Jewish guy, and I'm Jewish as well.
Cuban Jewish guy.
And we used to have conversations. We used to have conversations which, we would have a Talmudic discussion about a particular strategy we were going after. And he particularly, but it's always been the people I've worked for. Every manager I've worked for, I've got something great out of. So I've been lucky enough along the ways to have some great people to work with.
My bird was eating my XLR wires.
God, if I had $1 for every time I heard that.
I had a rabbit years ago when they had the early days of the laser printers, and I had a cable for that laser printer. I had like 95 little cables. And I came home one day and the rabbit had chewed right through it. It cost me, back then, $300 to get a new one.
And he's eating my wires during the show, and I didn't know he was up there. I usually cover everything, but he's being a bad boy. Okay, let's move along here. Let's talk about Bravas.
Yes. What would you like to know, John?
What is Bravas and what can it do for me?
What's it going to cost to get a Bravas to come and design an entertainment system for my house?
Oh, well, we just did. So we probably explain who we are. We are the leading installer of technology into luxury homes in the US. It's really a real local business, but we're the only national chain effectively in 15 cities around the country that does this. Why is it
nobody ever comes on here and says they're the 3rd leading or the 5th leading?
I don't know.
The leading.
Well, I can't help with that one. I can only tell you we are, I think, the leading and, of course, the best. But we do tend to work in the luxury end of the market. So you asked about, we did a home theater a few weeks ago for $1 million. So if you're into type of things, we'd love to work with you on that, Colin.
I have a game room. It's not a theater room. It needs to be 3 times the size to be a theater room, I think.
That's okay. Just build a bigger house. We're happy to help with that as well.
Yeah, Colin's got room.
So my current plan is to build a 6-car garage out behind my house. It's going to be my machine shop. So I'm prioritizing that over the entertainment
Well,
system
I
at
was
the moment. But to your point, there are a lot of people who will spend that kind of money for an entertainment system.
oh yeah, and by the way, I was in the house.
You're in 15 cities. Are these cities selected by financial demographics or regional?
They come from the 15 companies that merged to create Bravas, but fundamentally they're in the cities where you would expect us to be, the Austins and the Dallases and the Texas and Minneapolis and on the East Coast and West Coast type of places.
Colorado.
Yeah, Denver.
Boulder, Colorado. No, Denver. Really?
Yeah.
I would have figured Boulder. I mean,
well, they serve Denver and Boulder.
Oh, okay.
So Bravas is how was it funded? Let's talk about this strategy, because I've seen the strategy multiple times in my life.
Yeah, it was done. They brought 15 of these. Well, actually, it's now like 20 of these together, and they managed to get a PE to put some money in, and they integrated. So it was 15. It was 20 sort of small businesses integrated into a single.
Would we
entity.
call that a roll up?
You would call that a roll up, and there's been a lot of roll ups in this industry, and most of them have. That looks like our website. Most of them have failed. And so, it's tough because it's a very local business to run nationally. That's a very pretty website there, Jess.
So you would
Bravas, a website which people can visit at, believe it or not, it's bravas.com. So you don't need a tiny URL or anything.
No.
BRAVAS.com. And it is a very lovely website, easy to navigate. Look at that. For living, for entertaining, for playing. What is, talk about Bravas. What is like something interesting or unusual that somebody asked for, like a heated loft for a dog or something like that?
I don't know if we've ever had a heated loft for a dog, but a lot of golf simulators are very popular. So, the people like, for about $100,000, we can do you a fairly good golf simulator that would allow you to play any of the PGA courses from your basement.
Or you could go to Las Vegas and visit John's friend's new business venture. There you go.
Okay, I don't know what John's friend's new business venture is.
What, John? Remind us the name of the vendor that's offering that sort of program.
I don't know.
Golf somebody. It was called Golf.
You're talking about my friend that's wanting to go into that business.
Yeah,
he's desiring to go into the business.
But it's a golf simulator.
Is it called High Golf?
No, it's Top Golf. He's got an arrangement with Top Golf.
The point being, it's a golf simulator that you would find in an arcade.
Yes.
Is that what you're using?
Find an arcade anymore.
Well,
anyway.
There's 3 or 4 of them, and there's Full Swing and there's Top Golf, and depending how crazy you want to go, all the way to including you want the floor to change to to the pitch of the hole or where you are, you can spend a lot of money on that. I think that the most amazing part of the industry to me, and there's some interesting places where it's going, but there's still a lot of 2-channel business, what we used to call stereo stuff left. There are still people spending, on Macintosh amps and Sonos Faber speakers, and that's still a fairly good market in the US, and there's a lot of money spent on that.
A lot of those direct drive turntables from the 80s are surfacing again, and people are spending big bucks getting them all rehabilitated.
Mine over there.
Yeah, no, if you were to, if you said to me, well, I would like a 2-channel system and money really isn't an object, what would you recommend? We would get you a couple of Sonos Faber speakers, some Macintosh amps, and a Macintosh turntable, and I don't know, 400,000 would probably cover that pretty well.
Okay, I'm writing you a check right now.
Thank you.
But I have 3 rooms that I would want that in.
You could hear that from all 3. You'd hear that in all 3 rooms, trust me. In terms of other interesting stuff, there's all sorts of amazing stuff. Locked rooms. People have hidden rooms.
Like panic rooms, you mean?
Oh yes, exactly. I was in a house in Florida a few weeks ago, and I like to walk around these houses and see the technology. And we're talking high end, tens of millions of dollar houses. And one particular house, I said, I don't understand the master bedroom. And I know which is her closet because that's really easy. And I know which is his closet because that's really easy.
A fourth of the size. His closet.
Well, his closet is smaller.
Yeah,
so that's it.
John has a panic room with a bathroom in it.
The fourth, yeah. I do have a panic room.
If you have a panic room without a bathroom in it, then you've designed your panic room very poorly.
Exactly. But this across outside of the master bathroom, there was a bedroom on either end of the master bedroom. There's a bedroom on either end of the master bathroom, which I'd never seen before. I said, why would you do that? And they go, well, that's one of them's the snoring room.
Yeah. That's me. I have my own bedroom for that.
That's the house. That's the second or third house in a marriage has the 2 bedrooms of the shared bathroom.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of amazing technologies. The biggest thing, going back to the battery point that you were making, JS, is the biggest trend moving forwards is power utilization, and how do we manage the amount of power the house uses so it's more ecological.
So a lot of IoT stuff going in and things of that nature? Well,
it's all IoT. I mean, fundamentally, the modern house, the modern automated house is all IoT. It's all connected. It's probably all running on a Wi-Fi or a networking system, and it's all controllable from a single interface.
So I have 50.
You go in and you lay Cat 8 throughout the whole place, and then just go to town.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're putting Cat 6 in, and you try and wire as much stuff because you don't trust the Wi-Fi network to control your shades and stuff. There's too much noise.
Cat 6A, I would imagine.
Well, definitely. Do your customers bring you in for new construction? For consulting on new construction, or
mostly that's what we do. It's you're building you're building a 10,000 square foot house, and you say I'm going to want home automation, and your builder or your architect says, well, you need to talk to someone like Bravas before you get too far, because you're about to make decisions which will affect what you can build and how you build and where the shades go in. We did one house a few years ago. We wired a house which had 176 shades in it. So that's a decision you need to make before you start building.
So what's the top of the line?
Soundproofing, like using Quiet Rock and all these.
Yeah, your builder's going to do that, but we'll make recommendations to you. We'll help you design, particularly the home theater that might use that, and then we'll install all the technology that goes into it.
What is the top of the line in that? Is it still Crestron, or is it Savant, or what's?
Yes. So there's really 5 names in that space. Crestron is one of the big ones. Savant is one of the big ones. Control 4, that's owned by Snap AV. There's Elan, but you can't miss out Lutron, because probably one of the biggest businesses for all of us now is shades and human-centric lighting, and Lutron is a leader in that.
So my old office, I had all Lutron shades in my office.
Yeah, my little apartment has all Lutron shades, and
I got mine on sale at Bed Bath & Beyond.
Yes. Well, there's a phrase that you hear in these sort of world called cry once, buy once, cry once, and that's automated shades is a very good example of that. You can, if you cheap out on shades, you get a chance to buy them all over again.
Well, I don't know. I'm for a tech savvy guy. I'm kind of into the whole sneaker net kind of thing around here.
Yeah, you have lots of thumb drives.
Yeah, and some of that, some of that's great. Some of it may depend on how big your house is and how many windows you have. And if you have, in a 10,000 square foot house or a 5,000 square foot house, you're gonna have a lot of windows.
JS bought one of those old nuclear sites that's all underground. That's where he lives.
Nuclear, you say?
Nuclear. It's nuclear. Yeah, you know what's really nice? There was a whole box full of cesium-232 when I got the place.
You don't need to pay for lighting. You glow.
You are your own lighting. That's
a sound absorbent panel behind you.
We can
You
build
don't-
anti-gravity amplifiers with that.
But back to my
Just
original question
curious,
about
is that a sound absorbent panel behind you, Nigel?
It is. It's actually a diffuser. It's made by a company called Art Novian. They're a Spanish company, I think, and they do lovely insulating and diffusing stuff. And of course, it would probably make more sense in front of me, but it's really hard to sell when it's on
But
the outside of the camera.
every audio studio I go into has one of those on the back wall where the engineers sit.
Yeah, Art Novian is really the company that does these high-end, really beautiful looking, because a modern house, it looks great with concrete and glass and steel, and then sounds hideous.
Right.
You know who Walter Storick is? You ever hear of that company?
No.
They build like a multi-million-dollar, used to, I guess they're still around, but recording studios and things like that. And I have a sound booth here because I do voiceover and audio production. And one of the guys that worked for Walter Storick helped me build it, and it's pretty cool. You can use relatively inexpensive materials to get good soundproofing.
JS is kind of famous. He does 5 or 6 of the voices on what game? JS?
League of Legends.
League of Legends, which
Wow.
is gigantic. So when JS and I were on Twit together, there was 4,000 people in the chat room. After the show, we went up and JS did a couple of the voices and the crowd went crazy in the chat room.
Yeah, one of the ones I've been doing stuff for is Lotro, Lord of the Rings Online, where I do very, very bad Welsh accents.
I'd love to hear bad Welsh.
Bad Welsh.
Can you tell it? Can they tell the distinction between bad Welsh and good Welsh?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. If it's good Welsh, you don't understand what they're
Tom
saying.
Jones.
A true Welsh accent is totally indecipherable to anyone else. But I don't, it's like, well, what are you doing here? You should not be here. You should be out searching the grounds for creatures. I don't know.
For William Wallace. Searching for William Wallace.
Find that.
Yes.
Right. I do one UK voice pretty good. Jackie Stewart. Remember Jackie Stewart?
The racing driver.
Yeah.
He's not.
He became an announcer in Chocolate used to say, oh, it's Richard Petty in the number 5 car and it's moving along the track, something fierce, I tell you, it's a beautiful thing.
You'll still see Sir Jackie, as he's known now, at Formula One races.
Isn't he like 90 years old now?
He is, and he's not hard to spot. He's the one completely in tartan.
Yeah.
Just in case you don't know.
Nigel, are you coming for the F1 race here?
I actually just got something from the MGM Grand this week saying start reserving your stuff for the F1 race. So
I might have to go with you to that race.
We will definitely be thinking about it.
And if you have that 600 millimeter lens that you rented, that would be fantastic.
Yes, I don't think I'll be bringing that lens because that
You
weighed
and Nigel
400
should go to Dubai. Those races that you really
I've been there.
I've been there. We've both seen the Dubai race. I mean, AMD was a Ferrari sponsor, so I had a pit pass for some of those races.
Yeah, Nigel and I talked about that. I went to.
I get as far as like Chico, California. Quite frankly, just, I don't wander too
We
far.
have a
off the
race.
ground.
We have our own F1 race in Austin, Texas, which is more than fabulous. So,
So are you in Austin now, or are you in LA now?
no, I'm in Austin.
Oh, okay.
No, he lives with Paul and Sunday and Jay and all of our friends that are in Austin.
Yeah.
I'm just glad you didn't stop after living with Paul.
Yes. So I don't know which
We
Paul
love
we're
you,
talking
Paul,
about.
but-
So
Paul Valhus.
We also heard wonderful stories about your tenants. So
yes, well, Paul is in an apartment block a few blocks from here.
Yeah. We have lots of friends that we've met online that live in Austin, amazingly enough. And then Austin has turned into the little hotbed community, right? So Joe Rogan is there, Lex Friedman's there, he's got all those comedians that are now moved down to Austin. So it's just amazing.
Sydney is watching us now, and Sid and I have a planned an RV excursion. We're going to go through California, then through Nevada, then through Arizona, then I think
New Mexico.
Go through Texas, and wind up in Austin so we can see all.
Well, you should come and say hello.
Well, yeah.
We had until recently we had an RV and we were enjoying that too.
JS, we're launching a very large rocket in March of 2023.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Sid is watching. Sid will have to try and figure out the schedule so we can be in Vegas. And
OH Space 2023 is a 21-foot tall rocket with a clear lucite section with the 3D camera in the middle of it.
You're involved in this, Nigel, yes?
I'm peripherally, no pun intended. I went along to watch the last one. There were much smarter people than me, but I was there to enjoy the rocket going off and the camaraderie around it.
Yeah. I didn't see you on camera. Certainly, Colin was hiding somewhere behind the shed or something. But how come I didn't see you?
Nigel saved the rocket. Without Nigel, the rocket wouldn't have flown.
This is how I tell the story too.
Because on the rocket was scheduled to launch on Saturday, and on Friday, after the rocket was back from the wrapper, the car wrapper that wrapped it, the center of gravity was off, and so we determined mathematically that we needed about 10 pounds of lead in the nose cone. Nigel and his beautiful wife Lori, at 6 p.m. on a Friday, drove over to the fishing place to buy 10 pounds of lead that we poured in on Friday night at 9 o'clock and glued it into the nose cone.
And I think it's worth saying that Nigel doesn't know one end of fishing from the other. So he went to Bass Pro Stores and said, I need 10 pounds of lead. And I was worried they were going to say, what do you need it for? And I was going to say, I need it for a rocket.
Yeah.
And they were going to be, okay, Homeland.
Security.
See, if it was me, I probably would have gotten dried beans.
At least they didn't try to sell you a bunch of shells. That would have been a problem.
Yes, but they only he gave me very specific instructions on what size shot he wanted, and I had a 20-minute conversation with the guy. They didn't have that; they only had one size, and he kept telling me it was the wrong size, but it was the only one they had. So that's what we got.
We had to drill a half-inch hole in the nose cone, bulkhead, in order to put the nose cone in the lead in the nose cone, and then put epoxy it into the nose cone.
It's worth pointing out that this was determined, and Nigel showed up with the shot only after my level 2 certification flight, where we also had a weight distribution problem.
Yes,
so the rocket went up and then sideways.
Yeah, that's okay.
And then you started sending back pictures to Earth where we got to see a parallel universe that was 250 million years old. Was that correct?
Yeah, it was a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the metaverse.
Who needs that stupid Webb telescope anyway?
I think, Nigel, are you ready for the lightning round?
I can about as much as I'm ever going to be, I suspect.
Have you been practicing?
I have. I know one of the questions, so I'm prepared to answer it with a demonstration.
Really?
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
That's the one about tap dancing?
Yeah,
Yes.
the one about tap dancing. Here we go. We have 10 minutes left in the show, so I think the lightning round would be good to do right now.
We'll have to have him come back.
So, okay, here we go, Nigel. Ready?
Yes, sir. I'm as much as I can be.
Hot dog or hamburger?
Hamburger, no cheese.
No cheese.
That hamburger. You didn't say cheeseburger. You said hamburger.
I
no
did.
cheese.
Are you a fan of In-N-Out Burger, Five Guys?
Not particularly. Five Guys, okay. We have one in Austin called Mighty Fine, which is very good and particularly annoying for the staff. If you go in and say, how are you doing? They have to go, Mighty Fine. So they really get annoyed with that. Which is what
I imagine they'd get
what
equally.
if we said hamburger or brisket? Which would you have picked?
We do brisket.
Really?
Imagine at Mighty Fine, they would be equally annoyed if you went in there and asked for a Big Mac. But
You would be. Yes.
Okay, next. Coke or Pepsi?
Ah,
That's Diet Coke. That's not a real Coke. That's
Coke.
hilarious.
Pepsi is an abomination on the face of the earth.
Why is that? It's too sweet.
I just, the one you get used to is the one you drink.
That's exactly correct.
you do realize that several years ago they gave a bunch of science students Coca-Cola, and they asked them to classify it, and they all came back and said it's a poison.
Yes. Well, I always think the funny story about, the new Coke was, classic marketing story is they did all this work about new Coke and they did all this market research, but they forgot to ask the one question, would you buy it? Which, of course, if they'd asked that, I'd got a no. But it was designed to beat Pepsi in the taste test. But that was never the problem. The problem was brand loyalty.
And there's a trick, by the way. If you put your brisket in that Coke, it'll tenderize it really nice.
Yeah, well,
Nice. And you can clean out the rust on your bumper too,
and your teeth.
And your teeth. Next question. Yes. Pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes, no question. Waffles, just don't get waffles at all. My wife loves waffles.
Nigel and I are the only ones out of 5 people.
I'm a pancake guy too.
I asked this to 5 people prior to the show, and they all said waffles. I said, you guys are losers.
The greatest American institution, the International House of Pancakes.
How could you?
Fruity, tutti, fresh, and fruity.
Pancakes way better. I think JS made me pancakes one weekend that I stayed at his house.
I made you blueberry pancakes.
It was fantastic.
Oh, quite choice.
Next question: cat or dog?
Cat. So
you're a cat guy.
I'm not really either cat or dog person, but my lovely wife, when I met her, she had 2 cats and they adopted me. And the nice thing about cats is I live a life where we like to lock the door and, walk away, and cats are self-managing to some extent, and dogs are somewhat more attention-seeking.
Are not.
My very attention-seeking dog is whining right next to me here.
There you go.
Thankfully,
You just made
directional microphones are very helpful.
Must be Frank-proof.
Well, so that's the thing. I've had this dog since he was eight weeks old, and I'm not sure whether I was on office hours at that point, but I spent a lot of time in this room with the door closed. So to this day, and he's not 18, 19 months old. To this day, when I leave the house, I come back and he will push this door open, thinking that I'm in this room. He can't find me elsewhere in the house. I must be here.
That's smart.
Oh yeah, he's a very smart. You're a very smart boy.
We have some people on the chat. Ray Fulmer is here. He says he pours Coke over brisket while smoking it. Mr. Gleason is here. He says, "Go Team NerdWorld." And
nice.
Mr. Hamilton is here. Robert Hamilton.
Robert Hamilton, my buddy. What's up, brother?
I was hoping that was Lewis Hamilton, and I'd like some tickets for the next race.
He won the race when I was at Abu Dhabi in 2019.
Here and Jim Hankins.
So I do have one thing to say in support of cats, though. I have this kit that I picked up. It's a quadruped robot dog, so they say, but it was designed in China. And I don't know if you can see the picture here.
Yes,
it sure as hell looks like a cat to me.
Very cat-like.
I don't know if they assume that you're just gonna have better luck putting it together if it's a cat. But yeah.
You should build like 400 of those and put them in your driveway.
An Arduino dog?
I don't need 400 of these. What I need to do is I need to build one of those hexapod robots and put a giant needle on it, and I can go be Gene Simmons, and nobody remembers.
You remember the Ed 209 from
Runaway? No. There's a movie called Runaway starring Tom Selleck and Gene Simmons.
What is that movie?
Oh, you need to go see this. This is
one of the 4 people that actually watched that movie.
Yeah, I know.
This is the quintessential
robot
going berserk movie. Before Blade Runner and before RoboCop,
Terminator.
Before Terminator, it was the original.
Okay, we're
Right up
not
there
done with the
Westworld.
lightning. Our lightning round is very not lightning.
No, it's
That's
not.
how it goes.
Well, we
Okay. Next question. Night person or day person?
Say again?
Night person or day person?
Day person.
Yeah, me too. When you get old, I guess you get up early.
Yes.
John gets up every day at like 5 a.m.
I do.
Yes, we meet most mornings, and I'm, dragged myself out of bed, and he's been there for an hour or so, and he's 2 hours ahead of me.
Nigel, I go to bed early. What is your favorite car?
My favorite car, we really like our Tesla X, but if money was no object, it would be a McLaren Senna.
Senna, really? That's not comfortable to drive in a Sienna.
Well, I'd drive it. I'd have my Tesla as my conscience offset.
Yes.
So I can justify driving the Senna down the road.
You have to have at least 3 cars.
I was sitting in a $3 million vehicle the other day. It's the San Francisco Municipal Bus. Articulated. It's very big. And,
The problem with the Senna is while you can get to the grocery store very, very quickly, you can't get home.
Yes.
There's no place to put the groceries. It's just.
You need to have a sedan. Well, you've got.
Oh no, that's not true. You could cook all your groceries in one shot. You could just put them right over the engine bay.
I have to have this conversation with people who say, talk about $1 million home theaters. If you own a Senna, somebody else is doing your shopping for you. You've got to get that
true.
right.
This is
You have a chef.
This is true. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you wouldn't ask somebody with a Senna to help you move, huh?
No.
I think you have to have 3 cars: a sports car, a sedan or an SUV, and then a truck. Right?
Well, I had the F-350. We had the F-350 when we pulled our RV with it, so we liked that.
Yeah, the F-350 is a great truck. It was nice when I had all 3 of those. When I walked out in my garage to go to work, I could choose. I had a Beamer 840, and then I had a giant.
Usri has joined us, and Alexander Curtis.
Hey, Alex 2.0. And it was nice to walk out and say, which automobile do I want to drive to work today? That was a fun. Or 2 motorcycles. I had 2 motorcycles and those 3 cars. That was fun times. Okay, next question.
One for each cheek.
What, chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate and Cadbury's only. I don't want any. I'm sorry. I love America. I love living here. Your chocolate all sucks.
Colin,
You're not wrong about that.
It's your fault, Colin, that our chocolate all.
I'm lucky.
Really?
I like cheap chocolate.
I agree with him. Nigel's right.
What is the good chocolate?
Cadbury's.
Cadbury.
Cadbury's.
Oh,
And not the Cadbury's you buy in
No,
your
not the
supermarket, because that's made by Nestle and it's terrible.
Got it. Okay, here we go. Next question.
You got peanut butter in my chocolate, and you got Reese's.
I don't get peanut butter and chocolate at all.
And I love it.
Nuts should be in a bowl, not in a spread.
There you go. Next question. Pizza, meat lover or veggie lover?
You know the answer to that question. Meat lover.
I do. Nigel and his lovely wife, Lori, and I had pizza 2 or 3 weeks ago.
At the
Next
good
question.
pizza place? At the good pizza place?
No, we went to
No, we went to the bad pizza place.
Yeah, rock pizza.
Oh, he knows what I'm talking about.
Pizza Rock.
Yeah, the place that John JS and I went to this one place. Was it that place or someplace else?
Pizza Rock in the Green Valley Ranch. That's where we got
Wasn't where we went.
Yeah, no, that's not where we went. Okay, next question. We're almost done. PC or Mac?
No question, Mac. I spent too long in the PC ecosystem ever to want to be in it again.
Used to work at StorageTek at IBM.
And at AMD, but I saw how Windows is made, and let me tell you, you don't want to eat the sausage once you've seen it made.
And how do you feel about Linux?
Linux is fine. Actually, one of the things I did was actually launch Linux on the mainframe as the marketing lead, and so Linux is great. I don't want to do that much work. I do not need a command level interface. I have moved on from such things.
Emacs or VI?
VI.
Really? How do you exit out of VI, Colin?
: Q. or :Q exclamation mark.
That's right. Exclamation.
If you really
want to save.
If you really want to get the fuck out.
That's right.
In a mainframe, never type space. What was it? Something space EOD. $space EOD, which is end of day. It shuts the whole thing down. That would make it very popular.
Look at that. There's our pro tip for today.
Yeah.
And
I add that to our
there was
closing.
a command in the JCL 360 that you never wanted to avoid called sysudump.
Yeah, that's not a good one. And of course, that still exists in the modern COS operating system, or its descendant does.
2 more lightning questions. Ready?
Yeah.
Kirk or Picard?
Picard, but not the new series, which is just terrible.
What?
Agreed. The new series is a disaster. Do not waste your time with it.
What new series?
There's a series called Picard. It's
a disaster. I watched the first 3 episodes and I fell asleep.
Yeah, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for him to have sex with Brett Spiner.
You like Picard better than Kirk? Interesting.
Yeah, the original Star Trek didn't. I only ever saw the first Star Wars movie, so I never got past that. So that wasn't my type of science fiction. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is my type of science fiction.
Nice. Okay, here's a very important question, and the last one in the lightning round.
Oh dear.
Ginger or Marianne?
Does not compute.
Oh, brother, you haven't been in the United States long enough.
I don't know who are these people.
Okay, let's go with a simpler one then. Chocolate or vanilla?
No, we asked them that one. We asked them that one. Ginger and Marianne are 2 of the characters from Gilligan's Island.
You see, never saw it. Don't
you
get
never
the reference.
See, you got here too late.
Don't get the reference. Don't understand. Does not compute.
You got here too late.
Okay. Well, let's try one that you will get. Con or Q?
Oh, nice. Q. You have to say Q.
Q as in James Bond.
Star Trek. Con or Q.
Q
is like the godlike figure.
Yes.
All right, here we go. Here's one you could relate to. Toad in the Hole or Spotted Dick?
Toad in the Hole, because I don't like raisins and carrots, and that's what you'd have in your Spotted Dick.
Nice. So I have one more question on my list to complete the hour, which we passed. Do you know your Myers-Briggs classification?
I do.
I am an ENTP.
ENTJ.
Oh, close.
I don't believe any of it.
I know, right?
No, but it comes in handy when you're. Well, I don't know. You tell me. People say that it actually you can build marketing strategies around it. You don't buy that?
I think psychographic segmentations are a bunch of hooey. But that's a longer conversation for another time.
You and I have to have a conversation.
I guess we'll have to do part two then.
But I would just say on Myers-Briggs, we'll tell you what you were. You get to choose what you will be. What you were is not what you will be.
Studies, though, because I found that I get along well with other psychopaths, and we bond over that. It works quite well, actually.
You should read the book, The Psychopath Test, by John Ronson. I will tell you that the important thing to know is that psychopaths do not get on well with each other.
Yeah, I guess not.
Really? Because we never have problems at our meetings, except when somebody forgets to get sugar for the coffee. So
yeah.
That's about it.
Hey, guys, we're at the top of the hour. We're done with this show.
Well, was this everything you hoped it would be, Nigel, and more?
It was one of the finest experiences I will have today.
Yes, exactly.
Today, yes.
This and cleaning out your coffee filter.
Hanging out with his wife, watching Netflix will be much more exciting.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to get to see you happy people and be part of the conversation and reminisce about days of yore.
We wish you well, and thank you very much for joining us on NerdWorld.
Now I know who to send all my blue ties to.
Very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Blue ties. Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you, guys.
Includes Nerd. Thank you for joining us.
We didn't have our intro, or we're going to have an outro.
I'm going to do it and fix it in post.
Will John Pretto ever escape from his white hole? Will Colin Hill ever monetize his breathless pulsoscape? The answers to these and even more of the universe's greatest secrets next time on NerdWorld.